everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and as promised, I'm in the same outfit because it's still the same day. So if you guys watched my tour yesterday, you'll know that this is part 2 of my video for yesterday because I wanted to show you guys what was going on in my garden, and then I also wanted to show you guys what I'm going to be doing to fertilize my garden. So let's talk about it. So one of the things that I do with my garden is I only fertilize my garden when my garden actually needs to be fertilized. That might be a lot different from what other people do. Some people have their garden on a regiment that fertilizes it every week or every 2 weeks, and I think that that's good if that works for them. But for me personally, I add a lot of compost to my garden all the time, and I also have that amazing worm bin back there that has been doing wonders, so I don't really need to add any other thing to my garden. There is one time that I do per season that I do add fish fertilizer and worm compost tea to my garden. So today you guys will come along with me as I go to the AZ worm farm to get some worm compost tea, and then I do already have the fish fertilizer. So I will mix that up and I will spread that around my garden and fertilize my plants. Usually I do it when the plants are starting to set fruit. So in the summer and then the fall and in the spring, when they start to set like little fruits, then I go through and I add some compost tea and some fish fertilizer. And then in the summer, or sorry, the winter, when it's colder, when they start to really start to blossom out like their leaves and start to try to produce a lot of leaves, then I'll go through and add some fertilizer too as well. But other than that, I just add compost whenever the soil levels get low. And I'll show you guys what I mean by soil levels getting low. Okay guys, so here's one example. This is my okra bed. My okra bed is doing really well. It's putting off a lot of nice okras. But if you guys remember, when I planted these okras, I filled this up all the way. So right now I'm missing, it's about down to the third beam here, but I'm missing about this much soil in my bed. And it's because the okras are heavy feeders, and I also water things really deeply now that since I'm here in the desert. So what I want to do is I want to now add more compost to this bed. So I'm going to take up all of these wood chips and I'm going to add compost to where it fills up this bed. Now the nice part is that it's not going to be covering the leaves or anything like that, because I do prune the bottom parts of my leaves or bottom parts of my stem, because I know that later on in the future I'm going to be adding compost. So my other example of this, guys, is that this bed, as you can see where I have the corn in, the soil level's higher than over here. And it's because I'm starting to pull everything out of this bed, so I want to get some more soil in it before I start planting the new things for the second part of the summer. So this bed definitely, and even with this artichoke plant, as you can see, the soil levels are really low over here, guys, because this artichoke plant has been eating a lot. So I plan to add a lot more compost over here and over here in this blank space that I'm getting, so that I can start getting this bed ready. Now I've had a lot of people ask me about my fertilization process and different things like that, and if you guys are composting your garden regularly, meaning that you're not allowing the soil levels to get low, whether it's in a pot, because I do the same thing with my containers, I always watch the soil levels, or in a raised bed, if you're constantly adding compost to your garden and not just like regular soil that you get like in a bag at Home Depot, but actual compost, then your garden is going to be fertilizing itself through with that compost constantly. So you're not going to really need to add a whole bunch of other things to it. The fish fertilizer and the compost tea I do add just to kind of give my garden a little bit of a boost. The other thing that I do is when it gets ready to rain, I completely uncover this entire garden of shade cloth. I don't care if I'm in the middle of the rain trying to get it out to avoid the really hot heat, but I let that natural rainwater get on my plants, and you'll see another boost in your plants from that too as well. So when I actually amend my soil, which you guys will see me do later on in August, I also add worm castings, and sometimes I'll add a little bit of actual garden soil that you can get at the store, because it has some of like the peat moss and different things like that in there to hold water. And maybe a little bit of Epsom salt if I decide that my garden didn't produce as highly as I wanted it to. But I only do that in August, when I can allow my garden to mainly rest. So I'll only have a couple things in there, and the parts where I'm adding it in the soil, I know it's going to be resting for at least 3 to 4 weeks before I add in all of the starts. But that'll be a process that you guys will see later in August when I do that. So one of the things about growing in the desert is that you can pretty much grow all year long. So being able to fully amend your bed, you have to kind of take a season off. So adding compost to your soil constantly is going to help keep your soil healthy, help keep your plants healthy, and allows you to still have amendments to your soil. So that's just personally what I do. It's been working for me, and I hope it works for you guys. So I'm going to pull back all the shade cloths, because we are now going to go to the AZ worm farm, and hopefully they still have worm tea. Alright guys, so I'm here at the worm farm, and they've got a little bit going on, like a little market. They also have some worm tea going on, and then I'm going to take you guys over here to the scoop your own compost, which is what I'm going to be doing in a sundress. But you know what, it's hot, and I'm not wearing anything other than a sundress because it's hot. But I will show you guys the greatness that they have going on. So this is the scoop your own compost. This one's the compost, and this one is the mulch. Now remember when I told you guys that the red wood chips that I had in my garden I was going to be pulling up? I'm going to be pulling up in August when I redo my beds, and this is what I'm going to be using for mulch, just because it's going to compost a lot better than the ones that I have. The ones that I have is more so for like cosmetics, but I am going to get a bucket full of this compost, and this is what I use in my garden to keep it fertilized. Now guys, this is where I got the idea of an in-ground worm compost bin. So that is their in-ground worm compost bin, and as you can see, they are growing a lot next to it. Here's some Swiss chard, I think that's celery over there, and then they have some tomatoes, which are doing amazing, it looks like. Those are some nice little tomatoes. And then they have another one over here, and they have dill, and it looks like fennel right here, or this could also just be more dill, and then some more herbs over here. But these are their in-ground worm bins that they have. They also have some seedlings that I'm going to see what they have. I don't think I have space for these, but if you guys are in the market for some seedlings and need some, they do have a few more at the worm farm. And this is the actual worming operation, where they have all the little wormies inside of here. So when you guys get worms, you get like a section of this, so it comes the dirt and the worms in it. So you get that worm castings, and you also get the worms that are in it. So that's one of the nice parts about getting your worms from the AZ worm farm versus getting them like online. Okay guys, so they also have some garlic, some tomatoes, and then over there they have, is that fennel? Fennel, celery, and some squash, some patty pan squash, and zucchini, and what's that other one over there?
It's a type of zucchini. It's called Costado Romanesco. It cooks just the same. It's like a sausage.
Ooh, that looks really pretty.
It's an heirloom variety. I haven't had the chance to restock, but we have kale, green onion, and Swiss chard too.
Oh, so make sure you guys come on by and grab some, because they have a ton of really good things. I'm excited. I'm getting some squash. Alright guys, I have my compost in here and there, and I have a big jug of my tea that they said they want to use within 4 hours, so I'm getting ready to go use it right now. so I'm back in my garden and it's getting hot. So we're gonna do this quickly. But basically I have my worm tea, and this they say use within 4 hours. So they have this giant bubbler that they put basically just worm compost into with water, and they aerate it. So in order for it to still be beneficial for your garden, you want to use it within 4 hours, and you don't need to dilute it either. So I'm just going to take the worm compost tea, pour it into my bucket here, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of the fish fertilizer. Now I use so little of this fish fertilizer that I've had this for about a year already. So it's not something that you need a whole bunch of, because you're constantly fertilizing your soil with compost. Now I'm going to do this, and just a side note, when you use fish fertilizer, the flies will come. So don't do it at a time where you're going to be in your garden. Usually I do it at night. I'm going to do it right now for you guys, and because I want to use this within 4 hours. But normally I do it right before the sun goes down, and it kind of keeps down the flies. But flies will be in your garden because it is ground up dead fish, so they love that. So let's get it all mixed up. Alright guys, so I have it all mixed up here. This smells delightful. Joking, it smells like worm poop and dead fish. But I am going to show you guys how I'm going to put it in my garden. Now this isn't, I'm not watering my garden with this, I'm just fertilizing it. So I'm not going to be drenching every last one of my plants in it. So that gallon is going to go through my whole garden, that I'm going to use just that gallon of worm casting or worm tea with it. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just going to pour a little bit at the base of each plant. So it doesn't need a whole bunch, but just a little bit at the base of each plant. Alright guys, so I'm going to go through and do the rest of my garden, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick example. The only thing I'm not going to use this on is my basil that are in my stackable pots, because that's something that we're using every single day, and you don't really want to pull something right off of after fertilizing it, because it still has that fertilizer on there, which is dead fish, and that taste is not gonna get out of your mouth if you get it in your mouth, and it's kind of gross. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope your gardens are surviving the heat if you are in the desert, and if you're up there in the snow, don't worry guys, all that snow is gonna melt soon, and you guys are going to be in your gardens with me, and we're all gonna be gardening together. So grow yourself a garden, because even a small space can provide you with tons of food. Bye guys.